Good morning, my name is ARACELI GALIANO and I'm a professor in the Department of Marketing and Communication at the University of Cadiz. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to participate in the first conference on the implementation of the SDGs in higher education, CEU. The project I am presenting is called Social Marketing Blog for the Elderly, Intergenerational Storytelling. We carried out work on SDG number 3, which is well-being in class with a developed group of older people. The index of the project is as follows. First, we are going to talk about the introduction, and I'm going to explain why storytelling, why do we select the storytelling technique, and then I'm going to talk about the objectives, the activity process, or the activities we carried out. And then I'm going to talk a little about the main results related to in the story, and at the end, the conclusions. Nowadays, the pace of life we lead and particular circumstances of our lives means that we gradually distance ourselves from our elders. Health and loneliness are the two main factors that affect this group, and they need to feel accompanied, for instance, by their family or friends. Therefore, we believe it is essential to contribute to the well-being of this elderly group, which currently accounts for about 20% of the population of Spain in 2021, and of which we will all be a part one day. A good way to get to know our grandparents is through their stories. Sometimes they are revealing and in many cases funny, but sometimes not so much. Often they have been an example of courage or of overcoming challenging situations. In short, they are role models and examples to follow. Older people relive their experiences and thereby give life to our historical memory, causing us to be moved by their experiences and make us feel part of them. They have contributed to shaping our present. They are part of us. It's an excellent way to remember them and keep their memory alive. For older people, telling stories has a series of benefits, both from a psychological point of view and from social perspective. From a psychological point of view, it favors self-esteem, improves mood, and encourages feelings of mastery of their lives. On the other hand, it decreases feelings of loneliness and depression and gives meaning to their life. So it means an improvement in their well-being. From a social point of view, thanks to storytelling, cultural values, tradition, and even more codes are transmitted. It is a source of connection with their loved ones, and they represent a source of credibility for society. All of this encourages older people to have a positive self-identity concerning their families and citizens. In general, the stories of our elders are a source of incalculable value for the culture and historical heritage of humanity and a learning resource for new generations. The youngest may need that experience, time, and vitality to help them understand situations that they might have to face in the future. The project intends that the older ones become protagonists through the technique of storytelling and the students' curiosity. The digital storytelling resource is not only an effective content marketing tool that injects vitality into social networks, but it can also become an effective strategy to enhance multiple skills and competencies in both university students and the elderly. It makes it an instrument that favors, on the one hand, the well-being of the latter group, since shared memories are crucial to improve their quality of life. On the other hand, this university learning promotes an attitude for respect and also more positive perspective toward the figure of the elders. In order to bring university students closer to the reality of our elders, the aim of this project is to connect university students with the experiences of the elderly so that they know, learn, and respect their points of view on our social reality. Also, the need to guide the training of graduates towards innovative proposals, which are accompanied by the use of digital tools, has motivated the development of this case study, in which students from the first and second courses of marketing, market research, and advertising and public relations participate. This is part of a social marketing plan that the students have to carry out. The initiative was carried out as follows. First, the teacher showed the blog to the students and gave them some notions of WordPress so that they could understand how it works. They also commented on the instruction on registering and accessing the blog, specified in PowerPoint slides with screenshots for better understanding. The operation of the blog was also explained in detail, consisting of several sections, operating roles, and the different categories in which blog entries are written. There are several categories referring to the subject they are studying and the entry class to write. The former includes 3 types: a new interest related to the elderly, an anecdote, and an activity to be proposed based on the information provided. The professors indicated that each student had to write an entry for each of the 3 categories: a new interest, an anecdote, and an activity to propose. Once they had completed the 3 entries, the next step was to discuss the findings in class and explain how they could conduct a qualitative analysis of the information. The objectives were for them to be introduced to the use of digital marketing tools and to a scientific methodology that would allow them to carry out an analysis focused on storytelling. This methodology is adapted from the Shorter and Collie Storytelling Methodology in Marketing, 2019. It was explained in details in class and consisted of 2 phases. The first phase is called intra-story, and the second phase is called inter-story. The students carried out the first part, inter-story, commenting on the story's content, the structure, and the context in which it was developed. They also used a digital tool to elaborate a cloud tag to identify the most popular topics. To show the most interesting results, the professors carried out the inter-story phase, classifying the stories according to the topic, the feelings, the subject, and the gender. The main results of the exploratory analysis were the following. We examined 293 stories and also 186 activities and 202 news, but we are going to focus only on the stories. Most of them were from the non-lucrative marketing subject. As shown in Figure 1, in each subject, most students are women, especially in the corporate and institutional image subject. After a first exploration, it is curious how more than half of students are female, talked about their grandmothers, and the vast majority of boys commented on the experiences of their grandfathers. It was interesting to know from the students' point of view the most suggestive and exciting topics for them. After a first exploration of the stories, we found these topics: youth stories, current anecdotes, and grandchildren and war. We can observe that women talk a lot about grandchildren and men about youth stories. The students wrote most of them in a cheerful and fun tone, especially the anecdotes that spoke of the grandmother experiences when they were young. The experiences were diverse. How they met, their courtship, work, and mischief when they were children, which give us an idea of the mentality and culture of that time. For example, my mother had two suitors at her doorstep. This coming every night, and she called it the hour of the pretender. They competed to see who got to my grandmother's house first. My grandmother was from another history, for example, that ARACELI did. It was my grandmother was from Medina, Sidonia, and she came to San Fernando very frequently. So my grandfather decided, after helping his father at work, to secretly ride his bicycle to Medina, that is 30 kilometers. This happened almost every day, whether it was cold or hot. Until one day, my grandmother's family moved permanently to San Fernando. However, the most interesting story of overcoming courage and bravery of these loved ones and the students were very proud of them. Revealing stories and incredible, like this experience that occurred in the middle of the Civil War. He was born in the trenches of the Spanish Civil War in 1936. His mother was in the place where they built my grandparents' house later, and she had to cross the trench to get to the village and thus ask the mother for help. I know you can say that in the middle of the war, too, there is a moment of light and breath, and so it was. The whole world went very well. Other stories of overcoming how the families managed despite the difficulties and few resources they had in that time of war and post-war, after war. For example, Pedro, I'll give you a piece of bread. I can't pay you. I'll give you a piece of bread. Those phrases were very common there, and both that and various gifts they had at home to receive water in exchange. So I can conclude that the students expressed their interest in the use of digital resources that they recognize allows them to put into practice creative skills to produce motivational texts or stories that transmit personal values. Storytelling is usually seen as a learning strategy that promotes student participation, reflection in learning, and technology integration into education. We can conclude that these objectives have been achieved. Overall, how students see life now is reflected in their words, in their own words. Like these examples. We are immersed in an artificial world until the grandfather or grandmother reminds you that what is real is other things such as an experience, walk, or simple advice. Another example, it was at 10 o'clock in the morning when they left the village, and an hour and a half later when they arrived at the town. After making the first communion, she and all the others returning to the village around 6 in the evening and without having eaten. When my grandmother tells me kinds of anecdotes, it makes me think about how lucky I am and all the facilities we have. The last one I selected is this story. A week ago, I read that an older woman who is part of the COVID risk group was making masks to donate to continue with our daily lives as soon as possible. With these things, we are shown that his generation has always been more grateful, and they are teaching us that despite being at risk, they can also contribute their grant of sun. So it is not surprising, therefore, the affection and pride with which our grandparents are described in the histories. Like this. Everyone who knew her knew that happiness that she gave off, and that contagious smile. How she illuminated with that sense the goodness, hence everyone know her as the pretty girl. So a big hug to those elders who day by day become symbols of courage and bravery. Thank you very much.